Hey, this is Chris Jericho, the sexy beast of the WWE and the lead singer of Fozzy, and this is Opie and Anthony. Listen up, kids.
Virus, Sirius XM. This is the Opie and Anthony Show. Opie and Anthony.
Sounds like Fozzy to me, huh?
Yes.
Should bring Chris.
Let's get Chris Jericho in here. His new book
with
is called Undisputed: How to Become the World Champion in 1,372 Easy Steps. Wise ass. Chris Jericho, what's up, brother?
Yes.
We are flattered that we made your book, sir.
Absolutely. Do you remember that day?
Of course.
Do you remember that story? First of all, call in the extra security because Norton and Jericho are sitting next to each other.
Yeah, there you go. Hearse for Norton.
Yeah, we talked about that too.
Well, that story will go in the next book. That was hilarious,
that was
man.
a good one.
But actually, Jimmy and I actually did a show together, Z-Rock, and we had a blast on it.
It was great.
So,
It was actually really good.
Yeah, we had a good time.
No, we said you guys got over that.
we
day.
did. We
Well,
did. It
a
was-
long time ago, but it made great radio.
It did. It
should have
but-
made this book.
Well, no, because the time frame of when that happened isn't within this book's time. So this one ends in like 2007.
Chris, I was calling you a dummy, and I'll tell you why. Because I said, because Sam says this is the book that has all the WWF, WWE stories in it.
Right.
And I'm like, that's dumb. The first book should have had that. And then Jimmy reminded me, well, no, because it was a bestseller. So he's doing, and
Right.
he knows exactly what he's doing.
And if you actually would have read the first book, you would understand why it was written that way. Because I had so many stories and tales to tell from my time before the WWE. It's not my career. It took me 9 years before I got to the WWE.
Right.
It's not like now where it's like 9 months for guys. So there was a lot of stories to tell and a lot of places that I went to get there.
Hold on. I want to slow you down. So these
I'm
guys.
on crack. I'm talking too fast.
No, but an interesting thing you just said. These guys coming up are getting right to the big leagues in 9 months.
Yeah, but that's just the way that it is nowadays. I mean,
but you had to wait your turn and really
but the thing,
put in your time.
The difference is I wouldn't change it because I got to hone my craft. You know, it's like being like a stand-up comedian and working on all the little dives. So by the time you get onto Leno, see, I'm doing a shameless Norton pandering here.
Yeah.
You really got your game down pat and you kill it. And that's what it was like for me when I got to the WWE. Although it wasn't like that in the first year and a half. It was a nightmare when I first got to the WWE, and that's kind of the crux of the book as well.
The difference with the WWE I have found is when we were watching a lot. We openly admit we don't watch as much.
Right.
Like when you came in with Fozzy the first time, we were all in. We watched all the pay-per-views, all the Raws, whatever Vince threw at us, we were watching. We've moved on just because our lives are different.
Yeah.
But the point back then, it took forever for them to introduce a new wrestler. And when I do take a peek or I talk to Sam about wrestling here and there, it seems like these guys are like just coming through much quicker.
Well, yeah, and you don't see the same type of experience level. You don't see the same type of knowledge. And that was the thing, like for me, because I've been around the world doing this for 9 years, when I got to the WWE and faced a lot of animosity at first, I was able to reevaluate and, reinvent myself because I had all these different experiences I could fall back onto. Guys now don't have those experiences, both in the ring and in life, you know what I mean? Right. So it's a different world where there's not as many great, charismatic characters because guys aren't taking as many chances because they're not really too sure. They don't have that confidence level to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And you were always one of those guys.
I like that chapter.
Yeah, this is great.
You were always one of those guys that were bigger than wrestling. You were going to do more.
Well, I always treated it like show business because when I was a kid, I was a musician way before I was a wrestler. I've been playing in bands since I was 12 years old. So I always wanted to be a wrestler and a rock star. Those were my two dreams. I was stupid enough to have these two ridiculous dreams when I was a kid and stupid enough to chase after both of them. So for me, when I first started wrestling, it wasn't about, Hulk Hogan or Ricky Steamboat. The guy that I wanted to be in the ring was like the Paul Stanley of wrestling or the David Lee Roth of wrestling. Like so much charisma and personality and be like the party host because I was a smaller guy. So how could I raise up through the ranks? I could be the biggest character, have the biggest personality, and it didn't matter what my physical size was. So I've always treated it that way as a result.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm reading this chapter about just where he's meeting Ozzy. I mean, Zach and Ozzy. And I'm just reading Zach and Ozzy stories. It's great.
Well, Zach and I got in a beard growing contest in 1999 or 2000 or so, and obviously Zach killed me. His beard is down to his fucking cock now. But that's how it started. We had a beard growing contest, and that story and many more is in this book.
Yeah, the book's going to do very well. Man, we were playing old clips when you came in.
Yeah.
As Fozzy the first time. Man. We were so frustrated that you would not break character.
Oh, is that funny?
And then Dice decided to take your side.
Because he was kind of confused, or he was just working that he was.
A singer.
Is he a wrestler or a singer? And then I said, because what happened was, for people that don't know, we started Fozzy as an 80s cover band called Fozzy Osbourne. And because Chris and Rich from Stuck Mojo were in the band, there was like a bidding war for a record contract for whatever reason, and Johnny Zazula, who signed Metallica and Anthrax, signed Fozzy as a cover band and said, you know, are you guys ready to become the next Metallica? And we were like, we're wearing fucking wigs and playing covers. So we started out, and so that's when I said, listen, we can't just be a cover band that's boring. Let's do like a Blues Brothers, Traveling Wilburys, Spinal Tap type thing, have alter egos, and play it like Andy Kaufman did with Tony Clifton. When you see Jericho, it's Jericho. When you see MoonGoose, it's MoonGoose, and there will never be a character break. And that's what we did. But and when we came into your studio, I would not break character. I wouldn't do it. And you guys were getting really pissed off.
Really frustrated.
So Dice was with you guys, and he was, you know, confused or stoned or just not caring. And he's like, what is he, a wrestler? Is he a singer? What is it? I'm Dice. I'm a singer. I'm MoonGoose McQueen from Fozzy. You know, and I mentioned that, I said that, you know, chronologically, if you look at the songs we're playing, they were stolen by other bands, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he said, so you do a lot of dance moves? And it took me a couple minutes to realize that he thought chronologically was choreography.
Of course he did.
He got that
Why
mixed
wouldn't
up.
he think that?
So then I was like, oh, I'm totally in on
Dice.
this. Yeah,
Right.
so it was kind of, so the name of the chapter is actually MoonGoose and the Dice Man versus Opie and Anthony. So there you go. You guys are immortalized forever in print.
We certainly
great,
appreciate
man.
that. That's for sure.
But the cool thing is, I've been on your show a dozen times since then. It actually that was the first time. It was the start of a
Right,
you know,
yeah.
of
Well,
a
we were
fun
excited.
relationship.
We were excited because we really, you know, liked you in the WWF.
That was what the most frustrating part
Yeah,
was, because
like-
at the time we were, like Opie said, completely in.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like storylines and action going on. So it's like, oh yeah, Chris Jericho's coming in. Let's talk to him about all these things that are going on. Maybe we'll get some behind the scenes comments and shit like that. And you would not mention one fucking thing about Chris Jericho, WWF, nothing. And we're just like, come on. At one point, I think I get so disgusted. What do I just say? I said, I go, Jesus, Chris, could you just for a second give it to us?
Throw us a bone here, please.
Well, we did they used to have a show called Sunday Night Heat that was on MTV, and they used to do it out of the World in Times Square when the WWE owned that. So Fozzy was playing that night, and it's still when we were doing the Fozzy gimmick. And I remember talking to Vince McMahon, because he didn't want me to be MoonGoose, he wanted me to be Chris Jericho. I'm like, Vince, they're two separate characters. It's like, he goes, well, you can't be trying to fool our fan base by playing a character. And I was like, what are you talking about? This
You made an entire fucking empire out of that.
And I said, I'm doing an Andy Kaufman, Tony Clifton thing. I mean, have you ever heard of that? And he's like, no. I said, don't you know who Andy Kaufman is? I don't give a fuck about Andy Kaufman or Tony Clifton. You're not going out there. So we had this big argument about MoonGoose McQueen. I'd been in the company for 6 months. No wonder I almost got fired 6 weeks into my career there.
Fuck.
And Vince should study Andy Kaufman. He's perfect for Vince.
The Kaufman Clifton.
We had Clifton in here.
Did you really?
It was kind of cool.
When?
Because I'm a huge Andy Kaufman fan. It's got to be over a year ago.
So
now.
it was his manager still doing it? Or
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
I just saw him in the airport and Friday night and going to Vegas. He walks up, he goes, "Hey, Bob Zamuda."
Yeah.
Bob
Oh,
Zamuda,
Bob Zamuda, right.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Bob, and he was dressed as Clifton, and he wouldn't break character. He had the girls and stuff. And
Amazing, yeah.
He was going to the Bunny Ranch. Those guys love hookers.
Yeah.
Him and Andy apparently partook.
Well, what do you think of Vince?
It's funny because in this book, I mean, when I first got to the WWE, literally, like I said, 6 weeks in, I came in with the biggest entrance in history, coming in with The Rock, doing this big confrontation. I had the big build-up, like you said, with the vignettes and the countdown clock. And literally 6 to 8 weeks later, I was sitting in his office, and I thought he was going to give me a pat on the back for a good job. And basically, he was like, "You are the drizzling shits. You're green as grass. Your contract isn't worth the paper it's printed on."
Drizzling shits.
Drizzling shits. That's
You were the drizzling shits.
I had never
he called-
been told I was the drizzling shits
Wow.
before.
And what were you thinking?
What I was thinking was, it was like 9 years it took me to get there. So fuck if I was going to be drummed out of here in 9 weeks. So I just sat there. I was like Kevin Bacon in Animal House. "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" So that's when I realized, man, I need to change some things around and do some things differently. But that's the thing about the book, is it kind of does have a real evolving relationship with me and Vince. How we started out as real, buddy butting heads. And
But what's his problem? Is he like too controlling? Because I remember that time very clearly, and you were killing it. So how could he possibly have a problem with you? And we've talked to enough of you guys over the years, and we've noticed there's a love-hate thing going on. I mean, Mick Foley does his show a lot, and he wanted to be that commentator, but he told us stories about how Vince is yelling in his ear, "You're doing it wrong, say this, say that."
Yeah.
Like, he seems very controlling, and does that get to you guys after a while?
It did in the early days, but at this point, I actually have a real deep respect for Vince, and it's reciprocal. But when I first got there wasn't that respect, and it did drive me crazy because I really was behind the 8 ball, because he doesn't care what you've done outside of his walls. So you really have to prove yourself to him over and over and over again. Yeah, it does make sense, but I didn't realize that when I first got. I'm Chris Jericho. I was a star in Japan. I was a star in Mexico. The fuck, and it wasn't that way. He could care less about it. And once you figure that out, I mean, he really did teach me a lot about wrestling. He was always talking about life lessons. I'm not trying to teach you about wrestling. I'm trying to teach you about life lessons. And now, being 40 years old and looking back to when I was, 30, 29 years old working for him, it makes sense. It's like your dad. Your dad used to be pissed off and I hate this guy. And then when you get older, it's like all he was trying to do was teach me things so I could be a better person, not to sound too cheesy.
Sure. But is he intimidated by anybody, do you think, or is he kind of the top dog around anybody?
He is the alpha male. He's not intimidated by anybody, as far as I can say, and whether it's Jesus Christ himself, he don't give a shit. So he's a very intimidating presence. He's larger than life, and that's another thing to have to get over as well. But once you do, he's one of the guys. He loves AC/DC. He loves Rolling Stones. He loves, babies, stuff that you would never expect. Much to popular belief.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask, if he actually has fun with his life.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
You can have a good time with him.
We've had him on. He doesn't do our show often, and it's been a long time at this point. But
yeah, he's a good cat.
We were never able to really figure him out.
Well, he's a maverick, man. He started this whole thing when everyone said it was going to fail. It's like all of us when we first said we want to get into show business, radio, comedy, music, whatever, wrestling. People said, "Oh, you'll never do it. You'll never do it." And it's the same with Vince. And when you finally get past that, it's like he had this dream and made it happen. And so did you and you and you and me. So it's like you have that in common with him.
Let's get back to the book, Undisputed, and I love the chapter title. So very, very creative. Like, never trust the Loch Ness Monster.
Well, that stemmed from I had a dream one night that Vince hired the Loch Ness Monster to wrestle me in a pay-per-view. So I had this dream, and the finish of the match was supposed to be that the Loch Ness Monster was going to swallow me. And I was like, Vince, I can't trust you can never trust the Loch Ness Monster. He's going to eat me. And Vince was like, because Vince is very much, I wouldn't ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do, pal. And when I said that, he said, well, Chris, I was in his mouth this morning. He did a great job with it. So I told Vince about this dream that I had. And I was like, Vince, I had this dream last night that, you signed the Loch Ness Monster to wrestle me. He goes, Loch Ness Monster, huh? Is he available? Give me his agent's number. Yeah, so, and that's, like I said, another cool thing about the book is, I'm at the pinnacle of wrestling. I'm working for the WWE. I'm wrestling against thousands a night. And then the next night I'm playing, in front of 15 people with my band Fozzy in Peoria, Illinois. So it's like the dual story of how I get the band off the ground in one aspect, as I was kind of at the top of the ladder in the other aspect, and so kind of how I made that other dream.
Getting back to the Loch Ness Monster.
Sorry.
Who didn't you trust in the WWF at the time?
You're trying to get Freud on me here.
Yeah,
trying to figure out what the fucking thing was.
To represent.
I don't believe in that dream reading crap, but that one seems very obvious that there was someone you just was look, man, I don't trust that guy with my, my neck or whatever.
I think it was just all the pills I took that night or something.
Yeah.
All the drugs I was taking that day.
Were you taking a lot of drugs?
No, I'm joking.
You never know with you guys. Some of you guys have openly admitted it.
I was never a drug guy. I just drank a lot to the point where I was listening to what Jimmy was saying earlier of becoming somebody else. They actually had a nickname for me. They would call me Drunkico.
Drunkico.
Yeah.
Oh, holy shit.
Drunkico is actually one of the chapter titles. Yeah. Drunkico would come out and throw glasses against the wall, and actually there's a story in there. Me and Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden and Paul Gargano, the guy who was the editor for Metal Edge, and my friend from Calgary, Speewee, who loves Opie and Anthony. We went to Broadway to see see Sebastian Bach do Jekyll and Hyde.
Right. Yeah.
Afterwards, we went to this pub and just got fucking totaled and, like, pouring beer on each other and spitting alcohol in each other's face and squirting ketchup on each other's heads and, just getting that type of drunk where Drunkico would, like, take a drink and throw it against the wall, take another drink and throw it against the wall. And then I cornered Adrian Smith and told him, I'm going to tell you every song that you've ever written in Iron Maiden. Well, I know every song I've ever written. I don't fucking care. Prisoner. Gangland. The Evil That Men Do. 2 Minutes to Midnight. And he's just sitting there, like, staring at me. This guy's like an idiot. And then rolling on the floor and smashing glasses. And finally, the next day, Sebastian Bach, one of the craziest guys ever in rock and roll, gets this letter from the pub. Dear Sebastian, you're welcome to come to my club at any time, but Chris Jericho and his friends are never allowed again. That type of behavior is intolerable. Drunkico strikes again.
I like the name. There's a chapter, and hold on to your fucking hat, man.
What do you got?
Vince loves apes.
Oh, yeah?
Vince loves apes. Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, what's up with that is I was doing this thing where I would always, you guys remember, always berate Stephanie and always like call her a slut and a whore.
Right,
and
yep.
This is the boss's daughter, and I would go to tell Vince, Vince, I want to call Stephanie a slut today, or and he'd be like, well, just make sure you pause so that the crowd can react afterwards. The consummate businessman, right?
Yeah.
So we were doing this thing in Anaheim where I was going to come out there and insult Stephanie, and so we kind of had the thing all written, and then the head writer called me and said, listen, we have a little bit of a problem. I said, what? He said, well, we're doing this thing with Planet of the Apes, the movie that was remade by Tim Burton.
Right.
And Vince loves apes. So he wants the apes to be involved in your promo with Stephanie. And I said, what does he want us to do? He says, I don't know. He wants you to figure it out.
That's great. Thanks.
How the fuck am I going to figure out, I got to bring apes down? And so we actually in a really crazy way made it work where I said, Stephanie has slept with every man, woman, child, hermaphrodite on this planet. She's had so much sex in this world, she had to go to another planet to find, conquest, like the planet of the apes, for example. And here come the apes all walking down like apes. And they came to the ring with a box of a present for her, and you open the box and it was a cake, and then we put the old cake in the face routine, and people cheered, and she was mortified, and the apes danced around with their limbs jimbling and jombling, and that's how I made that work.
And Vince Vaughn just going, great job.
Dude,
Great job humiliating my daughter.
When I came through the curtain, he gave me a standing ovation. I had 5-star matches that he didn't even look at. He gave me a standing ovation for that stupid shit.
Will he tell you if he doesn't like a match? Like if you go backstage, will he go like that was he did something wrong?
He'll take his glasses down like this and go. You
shit.
guys can't see it, but gives you the old the finger. The finger,
yeah.
Come here. And you go sit down and be like, takes off his headphones, takes off his glasses, and then just tells you exactly, gives you a little what for, as Buddy Rich would say.
What is it like, you weren't putting your all into that?
Yeah, or like, what the fuck were you doing? What do you mean? That was exact opposite of what I wanted, and this was bad, and your instincts were terrible, and this was wrong.
Wow, that's gotta suck.
Yeah, he has no problems telling you if he thinks he didn't like something. And sometimes he's right, and sometimes you're thinking, man, that's just, the crowd was going nuts, and I loved it, but it just depends what kind of mood he's in.
I'm fucking bruised up and beaten, and I come back here to get yelled at by this guy.
I just did a segment with apes, and now you're yelling at me. Now you want me to lose to the Loch Ness Monster?
This photo of you choking Adrian from Iron Maiden, too. You got some great pictures in here.
Yeah, well, that was cool, too, Jimmy, because it was like I was able to finagle myself backstage to Maiden in 2000, which was the first time I'd ever met them. And Adrian's wife was there and said, oh, you're Chris Jericho, the wrestler. My son is a big fan. Can you come call him? So here I am like, oh, my God, I'm going to call Adrian Smith's son. And that was the first time I ever realized, like, I'm not just some fanboy anymore. I actually have a little sway myself. And then Adrian and I became friends because of that, which was like the first time I ever experienced that. Like when you get to a certain level of fame or celebrity or whatever in one area, and all these other guys dig that too. So.
And you said Zach was a fan too.
Oh, Zach is just a great guy. I mean, you know how he is. Yeah. So he loved the Ultimate Warrior. He's obsessed to this day with the Ultimate Warrior. Bro, how's James Hellwig? Tell me about James Hellwig. How big was James Hellwig?
Who doesn't love watching the Warrior?
The Warrior,
especially now. Jesus Christ, he's out of his mind.
Yeah, always. He actually changed his name to Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior.
That's his name on his...
Warrior.
He gets pulled over by the cops, and the license says Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, Ultimate Warrior. Exactly. So.
What a nut.
The book looks really good. Man.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's getting a lot of buzz on it, a lot of good reviews and all that.
Also
big
signings
book,
too.
man.
To plug the signings today, there's a signing. You have to. These are the way to come and you meet Chris and you get your book signed today at noon at Borders. It's 100 Broadway here in the city. And then tonight, if you can't make that one, it's 8 o'clock at the Book Review. It's a speaking and a book signing, and that's at 313 New York Avenue in Huntington.
It's my hometown there.
Yeah.
Huntington.
That bookstore is great. My
Yeah.
restaurant's right up the street.
I think we've been there before.
Yeah.
And tomorrow you're in Boston. Barnes & Noble at 7 o'clock on Beacon Street in Boston.
Very cool.
The
So
signings will be mobbed.
You've done quite a few books.
I've
right,
done a
Jimmy?
few, yeah. It's been a while.
Three maybe? Or
Two
or
books,
three?
and the book signings I've done a lot of. 2 books.
That's great, man.
Hey,
yeah.
It's fun, yeah.
You mentioned Benoit there.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't write a book without mentioning it. And that's the thing about this book that's different from the first one. There are a lot of, it's a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, and there's some really heavy, deep things to talk about. But especially in the Benoit situation, it was so cool for me to, not cool, but cathartic, I guess is the word, to write about this and get it out of my system to put on the printed page. So now I don't ever really have to talk about it. If you want to know my thoughts and issues, you can just read about it. And
Were you guys close?
He was my best friend in wrestling. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. Beyond. So that's why, I mean, I had to deal with this.
I just want to ask one. Did you see him changing? Did you see any?
Well, I talk about it in the book. You saw him changing a lot after Eddie Guerrero died, because Eddie was his best friend. And but he was a great guy, very polite, very positive, like a mentor at first, and then became a very good friend. But he was a strange guy, like especially when you look back, and that's kind of what I talk about a lot. Certain things that happened years before would be like he wouldn't laugh at something that was like the funniest bit you'd ever seen, I don't know, Dumb and Dumber or something ridiculous like that. And if you played that for him, he would just sit there and kind of like go, nothing. And you think this is funny? Oh, it's funny. I'm laughing inside.
Oh,
that type of thing. And then
yeah.
if somebody threw up on the street, he would find that the funniest thing. So that type of a guy, Right. So, and like I said, it's interesting to kind of separate this guy that I knew for 15, 16, 18 years from the guy in the last 2 or 3 days of his life. I mean, it's a very strange, talking about it, and you want to laugh and stuff, but then there's always this black cloud hanging over it. Of course, yeah. I think I tried to explain to people that didn't know that he was, he was a human being. He was, he wasn't just some kind of a crazy maniac monster. He was a great guy, loved his family, loved his kids. I would have left my kids with him and had no problems, no reservations, more than almost anybody else, in the world. I would have left them with him. So, that's why to be able to write about it and kind of dig into it a bit was very, like I said, very cathartic for me, and I'm glad I was able to do that.
You guys are almost like fucking like soldiers on a battlefield, because a lot of wrestlers have died, and at much younger ages than they're supposed to. How do you deal with stuff like that? Because it is almost like you would get a post-traumatic stress.
Yeah,
from some of this stuff.
You certainly know a lot
of your buddies dying like that.
Yeah, you know a lot of them pretty well that have passed.
I mean, like I said, Eddie was a great friend of mine too, and that his death is in there too. It's what the worst part of it is. It really desensitizes you. I mean, in my first book, I wrote about this guy called Art Barr that passed away. He was a friend of mine that I worked with in Mexico,
Jesus.
and that was the first guy that I'd ever knew that had died, of drugs. Since then, I could probably tell you, and this is not a joke, probably 40 guys and girls that I was friends with or knew or was best friends with in some cases that have passed away.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, it is.
40,
it's crazy. But you become. It's like, oh, you hear so and so died. It's like, well, I saw that coming. Or, well,
and again, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like if you hear soldiers talk about going out. And the first time one of their buddies gets it or something, they're freaking out. And then after a full tour or 2 tours, it becomes like, you almost become like, I don't want to be friends with anybody because
you don't want to get too attached.
Yeah.
The good thing is that the business has changed now, so it's really, I mean, it's almost, if you're like, I kind of came in right in between old and new, so I had that crazy side, but never got into the real serious stuff.
Yeah.
But now guys they play video games and Guitar Hero, and they don't do anything, and it's like, you guys are really lame now. But it's
you swung to the really lame.
Exactly.
Was it the schedule you guys had to keep?
I just think it's just the way it was. If you look at guys in the 80s or, even rock bands,
Right,
70s,
same
80s,
thing.
they're
Same
all
thing is
crazy.
happening.
90s bands now aren't
doing the same thing.
as crazy.
We
It's just
talk
not
about
like that
that
anymore.
because we've been around long enough now where we were backstage seeing all these bands
Right,
partying
yeah.
and like just out of their minds, and now they're like, juicing, literally
Yeah.
juicing carrots and fucking
Well-
apple juice and having a salad, and
Yeah,
it's like,
you
who
know-
are these guys? They're supposed to be rock stars.
But Zach and I, when we first met, it was nuts. I mean, we used to get loaded and then go play pedestrian chicken, where you would lie in the middle of the street in in downtown Manhattan at like 4 a.m. and just lie there. And it's like, well, nobody's gonna run you over, and just see if cars would come. Like you'd be that fucking loaded, where you're just gonna lie in the street. I dare someone to run me over. Like that's smart, right?
Yeah.
Now. The last time, a couple times we've hung out, we're drinking tea, and it's like, 'cause Zach's totally straight now, and so you don't want to drink in front of him. And as you move on in life, if you're lucky enough to get past that stuff and still be alive, you have to kind of really appreciate that and
Yeah.
not fuck around with it.
There'd be great songs were almost not written because of how many fucking riffs would have been missed.
Right. Pedestrian chicken.
One shitty cab could have ended a lot of great riffs without it depressing.
Yeah.
Are you a big Beatles fan?
A huge Beatles fan. They're my favorite band.
You're writing, I dragged a chrome across my head like you're talking. And
woke up, got out of bed, and dragged a comb across my head.
And you refer to your mom as Sweet Loretta Modern. That's obviously from the...
yeah, and it's funny. I always thought that was the lyric, but it's actually Sweet Loretta Martin, which I found out just writing this book. But it'll always be Sweet Loretta.
I thought it was modern
to
too.
me. Yeah, exactly.
I thought that too.
What's your
what I
favorite
called it.
Beatles song?
Probably I'm pretty bad because I'm really with the obscure stuff. I love "I Want You." She's so heavy from Abbey Road. I can put that on and just. I think that's one of the first heavy metal songs of all time. I also used to have a show on the Boneyard, which Jimmy does now.
That's right. Yeah, you were
very good. I had it for 2 years, and I used to get in trouble for playing heavy Beatles or heavy Black Crows, and now they play those songs. But I actually got fired because of that. That and I called Oprah fat.
Fired for that?
Yeah, you can't call Oprah fat. She's the cash cow. And I was like, choose your words wisely. But yeah, because they wanted me to just do all, they were really going through this. It was a hairband channel. It wasn't when I was hired. It was just a heavy metal channel.
But see, from the other side, if you're a listener and Chris Jericho is playing like his music, you want to know what Chris Jericho's into. Who gives a fuck if maybe one or two are borderline not hair bands?
I
never
hired to
understood
do.
that
I don't
logic,
either because
they're sort of doing that to Jimmy a little bit, right, Jimmy?
We've had some. I liked your show. I remember when your show was on. I remember.
But Jimmy's got a lot of fans, and now they're listening to the Boneyard, going, "Wow, what does Jimmy consider music in this sort of genre?"
That's right,
and it's fine to go completely off the playlist.
Because to me, it wasn't it was a metal show. So there was metal in the '60s, Sabbath, but precursor to Sabbath was some of that heavy Beatles stuff. And if you want to play Any Way You Want It by Journey, that's just as heavy as anything Poison has ever done. But they got really strict about that because there was you know how it is. Program directors change.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm actually envious of your show because I love doing that. It's the one thing in my career when I got tanked, I was like, fuck.
Yeah,
they're like that, man. It was fun.
Yeah, program directors, they're just trying to justify their jobs because they're
well, yeah, and you
they're
know how
useless.
the business goes, man.
They're completely useless.
They're jaded too. Like as a listener, like I know when I don't hear something that's a little different and go, turn the station off. I mean, I'll listen to it. I don't panic if it's like
Especially
check it out, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a personality like yourself or Chris Jericho.
If you're a fan of the guy, you're going to check out because you trust his judgment. And check this out. I think you'll like it.
And you were bringing in a lot of listeners because it's Chris Jericho.
I think I did. I had the show for 2 years straight. So
Definitely.
but it was fun,
not even a question. There's no doubt in my mind.
It was fun, man.
But the book looks. Anything else you want to say about the book? I would love to just read, chapter titles and have you talk.
Well, I
I don't want to give away the whole fucking book.
Jimmy's reading a chapter called MC Hammered, and this is after 9/11. I was on a plane from L.A. to Philly. I was on a red eye. And red eyes are the shits. You're trying to sleep, but you can't really, and the sun is coming up. So I was just about to go to sleep, and I heard this voice man go, this is stupid. Rah. And it's like, what the hell is that? So I'm looking back, and there's some businessman in the aisle seat, still like kind of in the first few rows. He's just fucking loaded, and he's belligerent. So he's yelling like, where are we landing? We gotta land. So I said to the stewardess, I was like, can you cut him off? She goes, sir, he's been cut off a couple hours ago. So just, she's like, kind of mind your own business. I'm like, what the fuck is with this bitch? Trying to sleep. So the guy keeps going. He's like, stupid plane. And so I finally get up and I go into his face. I said, listen, people are trying to sleep. I'm sick of hearing your whiny voice. Shut the fuck up, please. stewardess taps me on the shoulder, sir, you're going to have to sit down. You're making a disturbance. I'm like, I'm making a disturbance? What the fuck is with this chick? So we finally land, and now I'm really grumpy. And we stop on the tarmac, and it's raining. And the guy's like, I got to get off this fucking plane. They sound like Tony Clifton. So we finally stand up. I tell the guy, there's kids on this flight. Stop swearing. Stop being an idiot. And other passengers are like clapping. Like finally somebody said something. And this is after 911. Like, you're going to do something with this guy? So as I'm walking off the plane, the stewardess is like, sir, you really need to have an attitude check. And I'm like, what the fuck is with this? Did she have like a Mile High Club experience? Anyways, I go to the bathroom. I go to take a leak. I look beside me, and MC Hammered, as I call him, is pissing. He just comes and puts his briefcase down and starts pissing right beside me, and has no idea that I'm the guy that was talking to him. So I just look over, and I see his briefcase on the floor, and I'm peeing, and I was like, oh, fuck it. So I take a little bit of a quarter turn.
Take a turn?
I just peed all into his briefcase there. And then I said, you have a nice day, bud.
How satisfying.
Yes, revenge.
Nice.
Sweet revenge.
How great is it to be big, though, to just be able to walk up to a guy who really is belligerent on a plane and just go, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
God, I would love to do that.
That movie theaters where you could just turn around and go, shut up.
Right.
Yeah,
but that was a crazy time around there, though, man. Like, to have a guy yelling and screaming like that. And I had to fly 3 days after 911 because we had to do a show in Memphis after that. And, that was just to be there and see, like, if someone's going to rush the cockpit. And I always wondered, imagine what would happen if one of those planes had all the WWE wrestlers on it when they were attacked. You're talking about fucking the craziest motherfuckers on the planet against a couple skinny jihad guys with box cutters? Fuck, man, I use box cutters to cut my forehead every night.
Cutting your own head open.
Bring it on, Allah.
How many times did you cut yourself in the ring? You don't have the scars, though, like some of the other guys.
You found, I didn't. I mean, maybe a dozen times, not too much. But,
Yeah.
you find your places up. The worst scars I have are car accidents that I had, or things, or just, fucking stupid shit like falling into a wall or things like being drunk a coke.
Who was the guy we saw down at one of the fucking cons? One of the guys from the Bushwhackers, was it?
Oh yeah. It's like a road map.
Oh my God!
It was unbelievable.
His fucking head is so cut up.
The worst is Abdul the Butcher. If you've ever seen him,
Abdul the Butcher.
Not only is it so cut up, they're deep. You could put dimes in them
Oh shit!
and just leave them. They're like
God
furrows, like little canyons on his forehead.
That is fucked, man.
We got one of the biggest wrestling guys in the
Sam,
city.
you haven't said anything.
Yeah, you know
Prime
Sam.
time Sam
Every
Roberts.
wrestler knows Sam. You got a question for Jericho that we haven't covered?
Yes, as a matter
Something
of
that might make all the blogs, the wrestling blogs.
Oh, now it's a lot of pressure.
What a radio voice, dude. Yes, I have a little question for him.
It's a character
It's your
voice.
gimmick?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure. He uses it all the time, though. It's like the prestige.
It's like MoonGoose.
He lives it.
Character called Homo.
So, Booker T came back to do play-by-play. Mick Foley did play-by-play. Is that something, you're 40 now, you left. I mean, you can obviously still go. You left still able to be at the top. But could you see yourself at some point coming back into the company to do
I mean, it's something
commentary?
that I would maybe consider, but I have a pretty big ego, so I don't know if I could handle not being in the spotlight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I could do it. I mean, it's definitely an art form that you have to do. But you do have to put up with Vince being in your headset, talking shit.
We didn't
But
know
I
that
don't-
until Mick Foley told us.
Yeah, but I mean, you just don't worry about it. I mean, Vince is, like I said, he forgets what he says through, if he says something, oh, you fucking idiot, and then 5 seconds later doesn't even remember he said it. So
What
he's
a
gonna
great
deal with
job.
I just feel like
That's exactly right.
like a Chris Jericho, Sam Roberts sort of play-by-play team.
There you go.
It could be
make it
something
by
Vince was into.
For like gay porn or something.
No, I was thinking
we'll go
for
to live.
ours.
We'll go to live sex shows in TJ and commentate them together. That would work.
That's a good way
That'd
to
be something
start
I'm
out.
interested in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When Jim was talking about it, Vince McMahon says when you're doing something wrong, my favorite part of your book so far that I've read is when you're telling the story of Vince telling you how badly you did. And then when he says, from now on, every match you have, he has to run through X-Pac because he knows how to work a match and you don't.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I had to.
Oh, wow.
That was like the real. Like Bret Hart told me, Vince likes to. He's like a drill sergeant. He likes to tear you down and build you back up again in the way that he wants you to be. And one of the things I had to do was go over all my matches with this guy X-Pac, which was, had to swallow a lot of pride. Like I said, around that 3, 4, 5 week period, if I could have just went, fuck this, I quit, but I just wouldn't allow myself to do that. I just couldn't allow that dream for 9 years to just piss it
you're
away.
There.
So
now, make it work.
Make it work. So I swallowed a lot of pride and swallowed a lot of crow and did what I was told. And then a couple months later they moved on to somebody else, and that was the end of it. But it was a real initiation period.
You were the whipping boy. For
I was
a while,
big target on my back for sure.
How do you go over a match? You tell him I'm going to do this and he's going to do that, or you actually physically have to show him, or you just talk it out?
You talk about a few things, but it's a lot like improv. In improv comedy, you just kind of battle back and forth and listen to what the crowd is doing.
Unfunny?
Go this.
Stupid improv.
We're not fans of the improv.
It's either really brilliant or hideously embarrassing to watch.
One or the other.
Were you a groundling?
I was a groundling.
You were. That's a really prestigious improv group.
Yeah.
A lot of funny people have come out of the groundlings.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But it's funny, like you said, when I first started doing it, this guy called Michael Hitchcock was kind of the teacher for me, and he said, "Listen, we're doing it. It was called the Phil Hartman Theater." He said, "There's 99 people in this place. If you kill it, there's 99 people to see it. If you bomb, there's 99 people to see it. Who gives a fuck?" And that's basically the attitude. It's either really brilliant or it's just the shits. But what it did do is it really helped me with wrestling, because to really believe in what you're doing. What's the word I'm looking for when you really get into it? Commit. Sorry, yeah. What an actor I am. When you really commit to it, and that helped a lot. You just got to go for it. If you believe it, and if you are, have no doubt that this is working, then chances are that's going to rub off and it's going to work. That's the same with comedy or music or anything.
And it's got to make you a little quicker to think on your feet.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Because we already had to do that anyways. I mean, being in there with Rock or Austin, we did 20 minutes of improv every night, just going back and forth talking shit. So to be able to really hone in on that and sharpen it was invaluable.
You ever get schooled by somebody improv like Chris Rock? What is it, non-wrestler I am? By Rock or any of those? Have you ever been in one of those battles back and forth where the other guy's just killing you and
fuck, he's killing me.
He's outwitting me.
I was one of the few guys that could keep up with Rock and Steve, because they were the two of the best, and actually got to the point where I could feed them lines.
Right.
We were in Tokyo, and Rock and I worked, and there was 18,000, 20,000 people, and afterwards Rock was doing his thing, and he used to do this thing where he'd say, The Rock loves pie. I love pie. And then, Jericho, do you like pie? And I would say, I hate pie. I love strudel. I will eat strudel all day long, all night long. And so so Rock's like, strudel, and he had that look, you like strudel? And I said to him, call me Okama. And whispering this, under, he's like, Okama, just say it. Okama means gay in Japanese. And so Rock is like, so what are you? Okama? And the crowd was just like, Okama. The fact that Rock knew what Okama was. But I fed him the line, 10 years of credibility in Japan pissed down the drain in 5 seconds just to get him over more. Like, he needed that.
That's great. We're being told you have to go.
Shit.
You're a busy man.
It's up to you. You stay if you want.
That's good. Busy
They're
man.
telling us you got a lot of interviews.
Yeah, man, I've been doing tons of stuff.
That's very cool.
But it's great, man. I always love coming and hanging out with you guys. Like I said, I appreciate the fact, not to get sappy, you guys have supported since 2000, man. So next book we'll have a great story with the Norton versus Jericho fight, and then our
was a good one.
Initial, and then our reconciliation afterwards. The best is you guys brought in security. We need some security in here. It's like, what? me and Jimmy gonna get in a fight?
No, it wouldn't be a fight.
We should have brought in a mop for me.
No. He just came.
It's got to be on record that was Master Paul.
He just ran in.
He ran in.
Yes.
Oh, jeez, yeah, no.
I must protect the talent.
I didn't want him in. I was like, come on, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I knew we were fine, but Master Paul was doing
and
his.
then we kind of started working it a bit. At least I know that I was. I was
definitely
like pushing it. I did the same thing with Mickey Rourke on Larry King Live. When he did the wrestler, I was actually going to have a match with him at WrestleMania, but then he kind of let the cat out of the bag. His agents flipped out, whatever. So he went on Larry King, and I went on, and Vince said, you got to try and goad him into this match. So I just said, fuck, I'm going full on asshole here. And I was like, I don't have respect for you. You're a coward. You're a son of a bitch. And Mickey was just like, okay, I'll accept that. And he could just see like, afterwards, he was convinced that I was serious, convinced that I really wanted to beat him up. And when he finally came to WrestleMania to do a little bit, he brought 3 UFC guys, one of them being Frank Shamrock, some crazy-looking Israeli with tattoos. He brought them with him to beat me up, because that's how serious he thought I was being. And I had to explain, Mickey, I was just acting, man. I'm just selling the show.
With you.
Took me 10 minutes to convince him, and he's finally like, seriously?
Before you go, how about you, Brock, you see Brock in MMA. How do does that like make any other guys want to go over there?
Well, I mean,
he's done so well,
dude. You saw that right from the start. He's so strong and so agile as a wrestler, and picked it up like I've never seen anybody pick up wrestling that quickly. Like he was a natural for it. So it's the same with Ultimate Fighting. So I have no doubt that he'll be one of the most dominant guys there for years because he's really smart. And also too, I'm not saying this in a bad way. You know, guys from like the farm. You know, like he's from South Dakota, I think. Not saying he's like stupid, but he's simple. So it's like, you know, it's one of those type of guys you see like a cat in the farmyard that's kind of hurt. You just go and break its neck, and he's that guy. Yeah, he has no problem. Just like, oh, there's a mouse. Yeah. Anyways,
did you know what was going on between what was it, the Undertaker and
no,
Rock
I think
with that little back and forth shit?
I'm sure they probably were just putting out some feelers to see if they could do something for WrestleMania.
Oh, really?
You don't think there's a real problem there?
I don't really know, but I would say probably not. But you never know.
That was just such a weird...
weird time, because you just lost the heavyweight championship to Kane.
Like,
right.
Didn't seem like he wanted to.
Really
that's
weird.
like a real time, like you're feeling pretty bad.
No one has really explained that since that happened. The thing is, she's begging.
She's begging. She's begging.
That's hilarious. We gotta get, that just means we love hanging out with Chris Jericho. Exactly. The new book is called Undisputed. Thanks, Chris, man.
Thank you very much, guys. It's always a blast.
Today at noon, today at noon, Borders on Broadway. Today, 8 o'clock at the speaking at a book signing in Huntington, New York, at the book review, and then tomorrow in Boston for you Boston fans, Barnes & Noble College, Boston University bookstore, and that's at 7 p.m. And you get to meet Chris and get your book signed.
He's going to have a shitload of people.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Chris Jericho.
Chris.
You guys, Rob?
Yeah, who's this?
I don't think I've ever laughed as hard at anything in my life.
Get in touch with the Opie and Anthony Show. Call 866-1011.